Hey, what's up, everyone? Good Monday morning to all of you. Welcome to The Sweat, presented by DraftKings. I am Emerson Latzia. A lot on this show, including looking back at what went down last night between the 76ers and the Heat. We got some best bets and top DFS plays to discuss around the NHL, MLB, PGA Tour, all that fun stuff. But yeah, Joel Embiid, not going to be your NBA MVP this season. That's reportedly going to be Nikola Jokic. DraftKings contributor Matt Meiselman, Nick Fryer, they're in the house. Fryer, did they get it right?
Yeah, I mean, I think they did with what goes on in the regular season. I do think they got it right. I think the push that we saw from Nikola Jokic throughout the entire season, with no Jamal Murray there at all, as much as I respect what Embiid did in the first half of the season and the early portion of the season, it's just that Nikola Jokic just turned out to be a little bit better, and he needed to carry his team more. And as much as I still think the Eastern Conference has gotten a lot better over the years and is deeper, and I like those four teams more in the East right now that are left, I do think that the Western Conference is still just a slight bit tougher.
Hey, Maddie, would he have received your vote? Jokic.
No, no. Oh, Jokic would have for sure, not Embiid.
Yeah.
I think Embiid hit an unbelievable season and is one of the best players in the NBA. But I think he's actually number three. I would have put Giannis ahead of him too. Maybe close between those two guys, but to me, Jokic was always the clear best player in the league. And everyone defines MVP differently, but if we're talking about who was the best, it's Jokic. We're talking about who played the best and then also who elevated their team the most. I think Jokic wins in all of those categories. So it really, the Embiid argument was just a first half of season argument. And by the second half of the year, it was pretty clear, at least to me, that Jokic had pulled way ahead of him. And I think it ended up being clear to the voters too.
Yeah, I mean, you can't undersell, too, the impact that Embiid has had on this series against the Heat, too, Matt. But looking at him like big picture, maybe it's just been average numbers that he's been putting up. But the dude does have like a broken face. James Harden, though, turned back the clock yesterday. Like, was he the reason like Philly won that thing and was able to even up the series?
The reason is Embiid, and it's not just Embiid, it's that he's not DeAndre Jordan. Like the difference between Embiid and who would have been playing instead is just so enormous. And part of what was the concern for the Sixers the first two games is that the Heat were doing a great job of doubling James Harden. And with Embiid on the floor, they can't do that anymore. So, yes, Harden has played a lot better, but I don't think there's any way he would have been able to play this well without Embiid there. The synergy between those two guys clearly is a big deal. So, Embiid maybe isn't putting up the huge numbers that we've come to expect, but the defense has been just massive. They wouldn't be winning the series without it, or at least they wouldn't be tied right now without it. And I don't think Harden would be able to be nearly this efficient without having Embiid there. So everyone's playing better, but it all started with Embiid returning to the lineup.
Yeah, Fryer, but you can't ignore like Harden in that fourth quarter performance yesterday.
Yeah, look, I don't like giving James Harden credit too much, but yes, he did play well yesterday. At the same time, I do agree with Matt that this series, I think the series might have been over if Embiid had not returned for Game 3. Even if he had just returned for Game 4, they still might have not been able to pull off a win in that one, just because he had been out for so long. But I think what we're seeing right now is the Heat are a good team. I think they're a solid team. I do think that they could contend if they made it so far to the finals with whoever the Western Conference has to throw at them. But I think when you look at some of these Eastern Conference teams that are left, I don't think they match up all that well. I know these last two games were in Philly, but I now think that the way that Harden played the other night, if he can at least come close to replicating that, and Embiid continues to do what he's doing, maybe even pick it up a little bit, I think now you're looking at the Sixers, and I feel like this is the Sixers series now.
Okay. And just like with Philly and Miami, Nick, no team has won on the road between Dallas and Phoenix. If Dallas goes bombs away yesterday, Suns get sloppy. Chris Paul fouls out in Game 4. Through two games, Nick, the Mavs looked outclassed. Like, how have they been able to even this series?
Yeah, I think this says a lot about Luka Doncic and what he's been able to do with his team and how he's been able to carry things. I know we're getting contributions from Dorian Finney-Smith and Jalen Brunson, although Jalen Brunson, who kind of struggled against the Suns, at least to get over that 20-point mark throughout the regular season against the Suns, not really doing it here either. So he's been solid, he's been good, but we're seeing a lot of different contributions across the board. I think what we're seeing with the Mavericks are Luka's looking good and everything, but they need that other guy at some point down the line to add. with him that complements his game well and that helps, in case Luka's getting doubled or anything like that. But yeah, you mentioned Emerson, like no one has won on the road in this series yet. And to me, until that happens, it doesn't really matter. I still think this is the Suns series to win. But I do think it's going to it's clearly getting pushed to the brink.
All right. Well, Maddie, any interest in Mavs plus 210 to win this series now?
I like the underdogs in most of the series right now. This is the one exception where I think the Suns are a little undervalued coming off these two games. And home court has just been a really big deal in this series. Officiating has also been a big deal in this series. And game 4 was just really fluky for a lot of reasons. I don't see the Mavericks shooting this well the last 3 games of the series. I do think it has a decent chance to go 7, but the Mavericks are playing a little over their heads right now. I think they underperformed in games 1 and 2 and overperformed in games 3 and 4. The Suns being roughly 6-point favorites for game 5 makes sense. They should be able to win. And even if they lose game 6, they'll get another game at home in game 7 where they'll be probably 6 or 7-point favorites again. So the Suns are the better team. I think the Suns are better than the Warriors. And I don't know that I'm laying minus 230 or so with Phoenix right now for this series, but plus money on the Suns to win the West, I still think looks pretty good. Like once they play the Warriors, I think they'll be significant favorites in that series.
All right, guys, let's shift gears to tonight. Hook me up with your best top price guy for Celtics, Bucks, or Warriors, Grizzlies. Give me one dude, Nick.
So I know that Giannis has the highest ceiling on this slate, but I still like Jaylen Brown a little bit more tonight at 8.2K going up against the Bucks. I know he's put up back-to-back 50 DK fantasy point performances in the last 2 games, and I think right now where you have Tatum, who I know we're going to see him improve tonight. I think with the price differential, I'd still rather go with Brown because it makes it easier to pair with another high-priced guy like maybe a Drew Holiday or a Steph Curry, who are kind of he's sandwiched in between in terms of pricing. And I think right now with Giannis, we've seen him, he put up over 70 DK fantasy points last time out, but we've also seen him put up around 50 in this series too. So I don't necessarily trust that he's going to bring that full value where I think with Brown, we're seeing whether Tatum's done good or Tatum's done bad. He's right in that 50 range after game 1. So I feel much more comfortable going with him as my guy tonight.
All right, Matt, who are you comfortable paying up for tonight?
I think Brown is a fine call. I think playing Giannis is fine too. But as far as ownership, I think Jason Tatum is the guy that people are a little scared off of right now, just with how poorly he played in game 3. So I'll just go with Tatum. I think the discount off Giannis is significant enough where that's at least comparable in terms of points per dollar from those two guys. But Tatum probably has something like a little extra to prove for this game. And then I also think the field probably moves a little bit away from him. So that combination at 9,700, I think it sets up as a pretty good spot for Tatum.
Well, Maddie, who would you say is the best value play tonight in DFS?
So I don't know that you literally have to play this guy. You certainly are going to have to play someone on his team, but Tyus Jones filling in for Ja Morant, who by all accounts is not going to be available. Tyus Jones is only 3,400, and we could see 30, 35 minutes out of him with a decent usage rate, with plenty of assist opportunities. So for cash games, you just have to click the button for Tyus Jones. It's not even a decision. For tournaments, you could pivot around. There's DeAnthony Melton. There's Dillon Brooks. Desmond Bane will be popular. I think all these guys are going to be pretty popular, and someone's going to produce, so you need some combination of Grizzlies guards here, but I think the easiest call is just to take Jones because his price is just so low for the situation where Morant's not playing.
Fryer, who's your value play?
Yeah, I think Tyus Jones is the right call on this one too at 3.4K because either he's going to be starting or he's going to be taking some of those minutes that Morant was getting before, or he's going to be backing up Melton and then cutting into some of those minutes that Melton was getting coming in reserve. But I think Melton also is a guy I look at and I think I like him a little bit more. I know he's a little bit more expensive too at 4.8K, but we should see an increased shot volume from him. Of course, last game when that blowout, he got up like 14, 15 shots. And the thing with Bane too, I normally love Desmond Bane, but he's struggled in this series. He struggled against the Warriors throughout the regular season too. I understand somebody's going to have to score, but I think it's going to be someone like Jaren Jackson before him. And then I would think, honestly, DeAnthony Melton is going to be before him as well, just because he has not been able to find his stroke this series. I want him to, but I just think Melton has been a little bit more he's a little bit more trustworthy right now and a little bit more aggressive. And also he's done work elsewhere too, where he's not as scoring reliant as a Bane is.
All right, Fry, we'll get you out of here with this. Which game's money line or spread do you like tonight? It's at 10 points now. Warriors are the favorites with Ja Morant expected to miss.
Yeah, of course he's doubtful, and I can't help but look at that one a little bit. But I'm going to go with Celtics money line here. I just think the Celtics are too good a team to go down 3-1 in this series. They've made adjustments. I do think, as much as I have been a little critical about Jason Tatum and the whole top 5 player hype, I do think to some extent that's warranted, and I think that he is going to step up tonight. And I think Jaylen Brown has responded to that struggling first game as well. So I think that the Celtics, they have the personnel to at least slow down Giannis, where I think that, again, we've seen him beat him already once this series. I know it's tougher on the road in Milwaukee, but there's no way that Ime Udoka is going to let his team come back to Boston down 3-1.
Maddie, what bet do you like?
Nick's going with the pick that my heart wants to make with the Celtics. Like I really want to be confident that they'll win, but this is too close to a coin flip for me to like really be confident betting this game. I just hope they win so they can get back and win this series. But the more logical pick, the pick that I think is actually more of a value here, is Memphis getting the points. And I thought this line was going to be inflated already if Morant played. Obviously, there have been a couple points added to it because he's doubtful. During this season, I think we all know at this point, the Grizzlies were just fine without Ja Morant. And I think it's a little different in the playoffs because Morant's defense has really picked up. So they're probably losing a little bit more without Morant than they would have, say, 2, 3, 4 months ago. But I still think this is a really good team, even without Morant playing. I think the Warriors are still going to feel the loss of Gary Payton and Andre Iguodala a little bit, where their defense is not great. So this game should be a little closer. Memphis should be highly motivated to even up this series. I don't think they win it, but 10 points is a lot, and I think the line should probably be a little bit lower than that.
All right, Matty Ice, toodaloo to you, brother. Fryer, hang tight. We need to know who to pay up for in the diamond right after this. Back here on the Sweat, everybody, where we now will turn our attention to Major League Baseball. Yeah, check out the divisional leaders here as we are in early May. And goodness gracious, look at the New York teams just sitting high and mighty. DraftKings contributor Nick Fry, RotoWire's Eric Halterman, they're in the house. 4 walk-off victories, by the way, on Mother's Day, guys. Fryer's last place Red Sox lose their 5th straight. Let's see who you're feeling for today's 9-game main slate. What's a pitching matchup you like, Fryer?
So I think that there's one obvious one that's going to be really popular for everybody, and that's Brandon Woodruff going up against the Reds at 9.3K. Of course, he saw them just recently, racked up 12 strikeouts. I know he had it was a 5 1/3 inning out and gave up 3 runs, but he still dealt against them, and they have the 2nd highest strikeout rate against right-handed pitching. I know that they just won their last series, which is like an anomaly. Like they pretty much doubled up their season win total, but they were also playing the Pirates, so only read into that so much. The Reds are still bottom 6 in terms of OPS and WOBA against right-handed pitching, and they have a 132 ISO against righties too. So not really impressed by anything, of course, that they've done throughout this season. If you are looking for something a little bit cheaper, but still kind of on that high end and trying to pivot off who I expect to be the most popular play of the day, I think Julio Urias at 8.2K going up against the Pirates is another guy worth looking into as well. The Pirates are not good against left-handed pitching. And of course they don't strike out a ton against left-handed pitching, but like when I see a lot of soft contact, bottom 11 and OPS, ISO, WOBA, I still think that that's another really good option as well, where you can save a little bit there, maybe spend a little bit more on an extra bat or two.
All right, what do you want to do on the mound tonight, Eric, and DFS?
Yeah, Julio Urias, who Nick just mentioned, is my top option here. I think it's a great matchup against the Pirates. They're an unimpressive lineup in a pitcher's park. Urias, he has a 1.88 ERA on the season, although his peripherals are kind of mediocre, but his stats look a lot better if you throw out his terrible first start, which came at Coors Field following a short spring. His velocity was down 2.5 ticks from last season in that start. It's still down a tick and a half, but at least it's, back up. That particularly poor outing looks like an outlier. If you throw that one out, he's got an 0.82 ERA and an 0.64 WHIP with strikeout rate just a little bit better than league average and a walk rate a little bit better than league average as well. I'm still not fully convinced his peripherals aren't all the way back to where they have been in the past, but I think if I was fully convinced in this matchup, I'd pay probably easily over 9,000 for him. So to get him at 8,200, I think is quite a good deal against the Pirates.
All right, Eric. What about a dude swinging good wood here? Give me your favorite hitter for DFS.
Yeah, let's stick with the Dodgers. Let's go Mookie Betts. It's quite expensive at 5,800. But when a guy goes 11 straight games without a strikeout, which he did before whiffing once yesterday, hard not to get excited about that. Got a strikeout rate under 15% this year. It's his best as a Dodger, and that's only a little bit higher than his 12.2% walk rate. So he's showing great plate discipline this season. Hitting 263 isn't great, although his expected batting average is 18 points higher, so maybe that is due to come up. 5 homers and 3 steals puts him on pace for 31 and 19 over a full season. So he's looking like vintage Mookie Betts again. He'll get the platoon advantage against Jose Quintana, who's got a 3.38 ERA, although that beats pretty much all of his ERA estimators by a meaningful amount. Really nothing too exciting there. Just a 20% strikeout rate, 9% walk rate. He looks like a bland back end starter. So a guy like Betts, when he's seeing the ball like he is right now, I'm quite excited to use him against Quintana.
All right, 5th highest priced hitter on this main slate. Fryer, who do you like?
Yeah, Mookie is a guy that was definitely on my radar, and I know Luis Robert is one as well, but I think that I got to still go with my guy Eric Hosmer at 4.5K going up against the Cubs. I know he slowed down a little bit recently after that. Well, he's been hot for a while, so it makes sense that he slowed down a little bit, but now he's got a favorable matchup against Kyle Hendricks, even though he hasn't really hit Kyle Hendricks well throughout the course of his career. Hendricks is getting hit by everybody and their mother right now. 10 earned runs over his last 10 innings, 14 hits, 5 home runs all during that stretch. Absolutely absurd. He gives up quite a bit of hard contact to left-handed hitters, and Hosmer has a 408 WOBA and a 190 ISO against right-handed pitching. So I feel very comfortable backing this guy tonight. I think there are definitely a few options in this lineup tonight to back against Hendricks.
All right, what about value? Who are you looking at in the value department, Nick?
Yeah, I think Dalton Varsho is the guy that I got to go with at 3.8K going up against the Marlins. Of course, he gives you he gives you outfield and catcher eligibility. 381 WOBA against right-handed pitching this season. 3 doubles, 6 home runs, and one of those home runs came very recently against the guy who was throwing for the Marlins tonight, Alicia Hernandez. He's given up 7 home runs and 18 earned runs in 5 outings this season. 5 of those home runs by left-handed hitters, and they have a 423 WOBA against Hernandez too. So I think Varsho is a great way to target this guy tonight.
Easy E, where are you going?
Let's go with Alec Bowman at 3,400. He's still kind of priced like he is last year's version of himself, which was very disappointing in sophomore season for him following a very encouraging rookie season. He started this year playing irregularly and hitting down in the lineup because of that poor season, but he's moved up to a top 2 spot in the order in his last 5 games. He's looking like a guy who was taken 3rd overall in the 2018 draft, 6 spots ahead of Kyler Murray for whatever that's worth. So maybe he could be a pretty decent quarterback as well. I'm not sure if that's how the transitive property works out in sports, but Bowman's caught his strikeout rate from 26.6% last season to just 15.7% this year. So dropping it nearly 11 points, raising his barrel rate also from a below average 6.6% to an above average 9%. Hitting 312, and some of the expected stats say he could be hitting even better. So for this kind of price against a guy like Chris Flexen, who has a pretty good ERA, 3.10, but again, it's beating the peripherals, beating the ERA estimators by a lot, doesn't really strike guys out at all. Strikeout rate of just 14.8%. So I believe that means he turns every hitter into Mookie Betts against him, at least in that category. I like Bohm a lot at the price here.
How about we make our way over to the DK Sportsbook, gentlemen? Favorite player prop on the board tonight, Eric?
Yeah, I'd be interested in throwing some homer punts at some Marlins here against Eliezer Hernandez, who doesn't keep the ball on the ground well. I believe it's a ground ball rate of about 33%. Could go with Alec Thomas, the rookie, at plus 600 as a lefty. You get pretty good odds there. He should have some power. Or Dalton Varsho, who Nick mentioned, at plus 310. Really throwing Yes. Did I say punts at Marlins? Because I did mean punts at Diamondbacks with Hernandez pitching for the Marlins. I guess you could hope that the Marlins get homers off him too, although that's unlikely. I would really take a look at your few favorite Diamondbacks here. I think they have a pretty good shot against a guy who gives up contact in the air like Hernandez.
All right, Nick.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm trying to look at the Padres game, still off the books, but of course, Eric Hosmer is a guy I'm interested in tonight on his total basis prop. But I'm going to settle for Luis Robert right now, who is another guy I was looking at in terms of high price value guys and everything for DFS over 1.5 total bases. He's going up against Plesac right now, who he has very good career numbers against Plesac, 7 for 13 in his career with 3 doubles, and over his last 24 at bats, he has 12 hits, 2 home runs, and a double. Pretty good hard contact rate against right-handed pitching, even though in his BABIP right now pretty low. I would assume that we're going to see, or it indicates rather, that we're going to see some progression. And right-handed hitters are making solid contact against Plesac to start the season, so I got no problem backing Robert to at least get a double or maybe a couple singles tonight for us.
Run line or money line targeting, Nick?
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to that White Sox game again. I got the White Sox run line going up against the Guardians, although I do think it might be a little bit safer to go White Sox run line in the first 5 innings as well, just so that way you keep it to the starters. You do have some guys in that lineup that hit the Guardians well. You got 2 good bullpens going in this game, though, too, so we don't know how long Kopech's going to go. He should go at least 5 innings, or at least 4 innings, I should say, because we've seen him go a little bit less than that. It seems like I don't know if it's pitch count or if it's hitter count with him. Him and Urias were kind of dealing with that. But Plesac, he did well against the White Sox a few weeks ago, but he struggled in his last 2 starts. And I know that the White Sox had a little bit of success against the Red Sox recently too. But yeah, I think that run line, I'm very comfortable with that too, but I don't blame anybody who wants to take the bullpen out of the game at any point. And I still think the White Sox run line in the first 5 innings is a good call too.
Eric, what do you like? Run line or money line you're targeting?
Yeah, the late night game between the Phillies and the Mariners looks very interesting. Phillies at plus 100. They've got Ranger Suarez on the mound versus Chris Flexen. In many ways, this year, these guys have been pretty similar, just not really striking anybody out. I already talked about Flexen striking out 14.8% of opposing batters. Suarez is just 14%. But Suarez showed us so much more last season. Flexen, again, actually had a decent ERA last year, but seemed like a little bit of smoke and mirrors. Maybe at this point we say that that's just who he is. He succeeds despite giving up tons of contact, but I'm still not convinced. Whereas Suarez last year had a strikeout rate over 25%. I think there's a potential for him looking more like that version at some point. And I'd give the edge to the Phillies offensively as well. Even if not everything's going at full cylinders for this team so far, I think there's a few more strong bats on that side. So when you get the slight advantage on both the offense and pitching side, I think plus 100 is a pretty good deal.
Gentlemen, fantastic work. Love you guys. Mean it. You two are free to go because the NHL is a madhouse right now. Who to roster tonight? 4 games on the menu right after this break. The Sweat, presented by DraftKings, is back, and so are the Bruins, Blues, Lightning, and the Kings, all coming away with big wins on Sunday on Mother's Day, tying their respective series at 2. Let's get into it with DraftKings contributor Jeff Ulrich. Dude, which team tying the series yesterday are you most confident in saying has the edge the rest of the way?
Oh boy, I kind of want to go with the Bruins here. Maybe I'll be the DraftKings homer and make everyone at the headquarters happy. But Antti Ranta obviously starting for Carolina, it just gives me a little bit of pause. And Frederik Andersen doesn't look like he's going to be due back anytime soon. I just think that's a really big factor here. I know Carolina is really tough at home, but when you give Carolina needed to split that series, when you give a team with Patrice Bergeron, Marchand, and Pasternak some life like that, and then you throw in the fact they know that the starting goalie isn't there, I just do not like the setup for Carolina going forward. Losing 2 in a row, the momentum's shifted. I know it's the dreaded M word, but I think Boston are the teams I'm the most confident. I'm also pretty confident in the Lightning, though. I'd like the Lightning to start. Again, you give a veteran team like that some confidence, you show a little blood in the water, they're probably going to take advantage. So I think those other 2 series a lot closer. I still like Edmonton. I think Minnesota, St. Louis goes 7, but Boston and Tampa Bay right now, with wins yesterday, I'm pretty confident in those 2 teams going forward.
Yeah, and I know it's dangerous to say no Charlie McAvoy, no problem for the Bruins with their top D-man who was out, but it may be smarter to say guys like Brad Marchand, Patrice Bergeron, those other Bruin stars can just figure out a way to solve Boston's problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think that's why Carolina needed to get a win in Boston, right? And not have the series tied 2-2. You just don't want to give those veterans confidence. I think, a team that's been there before, players that have been there before, they know that, once the series is tied 2-2 going back, now it's a 3-game. Now that we just got to concentrate for 3 games, and the pressure is just ramped up on the team that's given 2 games away. So yeah, every team's got injury issues. I mentioned Carolina net, Boston on the back end, but as long as those top lines are rolling and getting confidence for Boston, it's going to be a tough out for them, for Carolina, I should say.
Yeah, Jess, something else I wanted to ask you about. It was a stat I saw floating around on Twitter this morning. 28 games have taken place so far in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Only 9 of them have been decided by 2 goals or fewer. And of those 9, just 4 of them have been 1-goal decisions. These are wild, just haymakers getting thrown around in round 1. These aren't very close games. Is that surprising to you, just how basically most of the time the winner in the first round has just been blowing out their opponent?
Yeah, and it's kind of a trend we're seeing across sports. If you remember back to the football playoffs, the round 1, the wild card games, they were kind of all blowouts as well. And maybe it's just a little less parity in professional sports right now. But I also think that with the way the NHL is going, higher scoring season, we just saw the Florida Panthers put up a historic pace for most of the regular season. I think it's just carrying over to the first round. You will definitely, in my opinion at least, you will definitely see it start to tighten up into the second round. You're going to see closer matchups as well. The more league teams only surviving, obviously. So I think I'm not actually that shocked at it, because generally we see this scoring tighten up at the end of the year. We really didn't see that, and it still hasn't really tightened up. I think you will see that, but it'll be closer towards the Stanley Cup Finals.
All right, dude. So let's see here. We got 4 games tonight. Colorado could close it out against Nashville. They lead that series 3-0. Who is your top center in DFS?
Yeah, I think going to Florida tonight is absolutely fine for DFS. They have the highest implied team total on the board, or if they're not highest, it's very close with Colorado. But Alex Barkov, nonetheless, 7,300. He's basically $2,000 less than Nathan McKinnon. This is just, Florida, I'm not sure if they're going to win this series, to be honest. We've seen this with number 1 seeds time and time again. They get hot during the regular season, and their shooters just cool off in the playoffs. And Washington is another one of those veteran teams that just has confidence right now. So regardless of that, though, the Washington goalie, Samsonov, definitely has a bad game or 2 in him here. And I think Florida responds offensively tonight. They're also a team who has a lot of depth offensively. So somebody likely on Florida is going to get hot. I don't mind leading with Alec Barkov at all at 7,300. You can even pair him with Huberdeau. Again, he hasn't played poorly, and this is just kind of a statement spot for them. If they want this series to be close, or they want to make a move in this series, it's got to be tonight. So I think you lead with Barkov here, and also the trends with Washington and Florida. We're talking about overs hitting and goals. The last 5 times these 2 teams have met in Washington, the total's gone over. So, with Florida still minus 175 favorites, go with the big center on Florida with Barkov.
All right, we got over in the wings and things department. Looking at it now, 3 dudes are going to cost you at least $7,000. You going that high up?
No, I think, again, like, you can pay up. I mean, you could maybe even try starting a lineup tonight with Barkov and McKinnon, because there are a ton of good value wingers. And one of the good value wingers is Nathan McKinnon's winger in Valerie Nichushkin. What a great reclamation project this guy has been for the Colorado Avalanche. 5,100 tonight. He's averaged 4.7 shots on goal in the first 3 games of these playoffs. But he's just a really good player. He's good on special teams. You know, they've moved him up and down the lineup this year, Nichushkin, and he's been productive everywhere. So it's just like another weapon for the Colorado Avalanche now that he's gelling with Nathan McKinnon. 5,100, a guy who excels on special teams against the Predators team, who's just happy to be here. That's great value. I also like Artemi Panarin, 5,600. Again, Louis Domingue and net, or Louis Domingue and net for tonight for the Tampa Bay, or excuse me, not the Tampa Bay Lightning, for the Pittsburgh Penguins. He did used to be on the Tampa Bay Lightning, so give myself that. But you gotta attack the Pittsburgh goalie here. Panarin only 5,600. I do like the Rangers offense, and I think Panarin, at the very least, way too cheap.
All right. What about another value play?
Yeah, I like going. I don't really mind the Stars players tonight. I do kind of like them. We'll talk to them when we get the bets. But Miro Heiskanen on the back end is really good value for me, 4,200. He's going to play a ton, and he should. He's maybe one of the best defensemen in this series. And at 4,200, you're going to get a ton of ice time from him. He blocks shots. He'll play a little bit of special teams. Miro Heiskanen at 4,200 is a really good value. Also like Evan Rodriguez at 3,300. He's hit the shots on goal bonus now in 3 of the last 4 games. And then Ryan Strome, again, I do not mind attacking the Pittsburgh Penguins tonight just because of their goaltending situation. Ryan Strome at 4,300. He's been busy. He's going to play a ton. I'm not sure about the Rangers long-term in that series either. I'd probably rather take the Penguins right now. But for tonight, really don't mind attacking the Penguins in DFS. Strome, 4,300, good value too.
All right, Slinupu pick for hockey before we go to golf here, dude. Your favorite NHL bet on the DK Sportsbook. You just kind of teased something about the Stars.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with Dallas here. I mean, plus 140 on the money line at home. I get it. We're not quite getting the good numbers that we've been getting on this team, when they were like plus 200 to win. But, Calgary's shooters, was a dominant regular season team. They beat up on the weaker teams in the Western Conference a lot. They were really consistent. But you look after that first line, their shooters have gone cold. And a lot of their shooters were shooting at well above career rates during the regular season. Dallas has a good defensive system. They've got better special teams, in my opinion, especially their power play than Calgary. I think the Stars keep it rolling tonight. I think Calgary is in deep trouble in this series. Keep betting the Stars as underdogs, even if they lose tonight. I like them at plus 140 here. Also like the Panthers at minus 175. We'll parlay those together for our money line picks tonight. I think the Panthers at minus 175 bounce back and at least tie the series up at 2-2.
All right, dude. We're talking about a lot of games here. Could see a lot of goals this week on the PGA Tour. It's just while you're here, this is a perfect segue. We're going to a course that could just see birdies galore with the Byron Nelson, returning to TPC Craig Ranch, dude. So before we do that, as you see some of the fun facts about this course, on your screen, and KH Lee is going to be back to defend his first career title there. Yesterday, though, the weekend that was at the Wells Fargo, Max Homa riding some steady play with his 4th career victory. What was your biggest takeaway there? Either with Max, was there someone else in the field that really stood out to you as the PGA Championship is next week too?
My biggest takeaway, I just enjoyed seeing the PGA Tour pros just freeze to death all weekend. That was nice. These guys usually in sunny spots. I'm the one freezing to death, so that was nice to see. But no, I mean, I think my biggest takeaway is definitely, Max Homa just turning into just a really, really solid player who should be thrown out when we're talking about top 20 players in the world and considering them for winners and big events. I mean, tee to green, very, very solid. You look at between him and Keegan Bradley, and look, Keegan Bradley is a major championship winner. So we're throwing Max Homa in pretty good company here, but you look at the difference and, they're both really good ball strikers. Keegan's still a great ball striker, but Max Homa's complete. Max Homa's a complete player around the green, saved them down the stretch, putting, making 12-foot birdies down the stretch. He can do it all. He can do things that Keegan Bradley can't do. And Bradley's still great tee to green too, but his around the green game just is not as strong. It's never been a good part of his game. Neither is the putter. So Max Homa turning into a complete top 20 player. It's really cool to see. A lot of self-belief in that player and someone you need to keep an eye on for the major championships. He will break through eventually. I'm not saying he's going to win necessarily, but he's going to compete. And, for top 20 odds or even just as an outright in the longer shots, you got to keep an eye on Max Homa for big events going forward.
Also, like I've started noticing now, like buzz is building for Rory ahead of next week's PGA Championship, Jeff. Like second straight top 5 finish. He hasn't won a major since 2014, which is kind of wild, but like his 68 on Saturday and Sunday was better than just one other player in the field, and that was Cam Young.
I mean, I got sucked into Rory at Augusta too. And like, if we're talking about DFS and just performance, it's fine. It's great. But like, it's kind of just the same old story with Rory, right? Like, look at what John Rahm did the week before in a weak field. Came in, he blew the doors off. Rory just like that slow start again. So is he going to figure it out eventually? Probably. Do I want to bet him necessarily over guys who are like, just bigger than him in odds? Because his odds, unfortunately, have dropped. So it's kind of a two-way street with Rory. Do I think the win is coming? Yes. Do I like the fact that his odds are now getting shorter? Not really, because there's players behind him like Patrick Cantlay at better odds who win, who literally go out there and win and have like 3 wins over the last 8 months. So yeah, Rory's nice to talk about. I really do think like, eventually he'll strike in the majors again, but his success rate at these big events just has not been good enough for us to be investing long-term in the outright market. So yeah, Rory is, he's playing well. Maybe the Open Championship is where you want to keep your eye on with St. Andrews. That's kind of got a little bit of narrative to it too. Remember the last time it was played there, Rory had to miss because of injury. So I don't know. I think there's better value out there for the PGA Championship right now, but Rory definitely someone who, the breakthrough at the major will come soon. It's just we don't really want plus 1,400 on him. We'd rather get like plus 2,000 or better.
Okay, yeah, he's his odds are now plus 1,200 to win the PGA Championship. Same for the Open too, plus 1,200. Second best odds. John Rahm the favorite.
Need him to miss a cut, and then we could get maybe some better odds.
You know what? And like Rory's got the same odds to win the PGA next week as like Scotty Scheffler. Who else? Justin Thomas is there, and a lot of these big name guys are actually in the field this week. Jeff, so like, what type of player are you looking for at TPC Craig Ranch? Because it's a track that has really little resistance to the best players in the world. You look at last year, I think it was 6 golfers finishing 20 under or better, including KH Lee, 25 under for his first career victory.
Yeah, and like I don't think you'll see that type of scoring this year. I think you'll see it play a little bit. Last year was wet. It was really receptive, and it just turned into basically an outright birdie fest. It's a Tom Weiskopf designed course. It is kind of a little bit of an easier setup, but one thing about Weiskopf designs is there's scoring holes. Like you can score. He's also designed TPC Scottsdale, so which again has those scoreable par 4s. Some easier par 5s in there where you can make your hay. And TPC Craig Ranch is very much in that vein. So it's a fun course. I don't think you'll necessarily quite see it, at minus 25 again, unless we get similar type of conditions, but you will see scoring. And I think, again, you need a player who doesn't just excel necessarily in the ball striking. Like it's most likely not going to be a grind fest like we saw last week. Yeah, you're going to have to hit irons well and stuff like that, but you're also going to have to bring a little bit more finesse and perhaps pop around the greens and on the greens. So, again, like you should be targeting the elite ball strikers, but don't expect the same kind of grind fest as we saw last week.
As I mentioned, big names in the field, and it's the week before the PGA Championship. So, Jeff, like many are fine-tuning their games before the second major of the season next week at Southern Hills, which means that motivations are worth seriously considering ahead of that huge event. Like, do you agree?
I mean, I think you're going to – no, I think this is the strongest field we've seen for this in quite a while. I mean, I remember like a couple years ago, like Brooks Koepka was like the only top 10 player in the world. And, the thing about Brooks when he did play this event, it was at a different course. So we're not talking about correlation, but just motivation. Brooks like finished second that year. And I think you're going to see a lot of these top players. Maybe if things go a little bit, haywire, you might see like one guy drop out, but these guys have motivation here to play 4 rounds. They're here for competitive practice. So don't go about thinking that like, oh yeah, like half these guys won't even play the weekend. Like they want to get in 4 rounds. They want the competitive practice. They know that, it's been a break for some of them since the Masters, like a guy like Justin Thomas wants some practice. And by the way, Justin Thomas still searching for his first win since the 2021 Players Championship. Brooks Koepka certainly wouldn't mind to win so he can get back in and try and get back in the top 5 in the world. So there's motivation here for sure for all these top players. And I think you're going to see multiple of them on the weekend in the top 10. Odds wise too, it's really interesting. Like Brooks Koepka's PGA odds, they're almost half what his odds are this week. So you're looking at the odds on the DraftKings Sportsbook right now. And I think when you're looking at them for the top players, you should not only be opening up the odds for this week, but you should be opening up the odds for the PGA Championship and saying to yourself, am I getting a deal on this guy here? Because there are some deals to be had. When you can get Brooks Koepka for the PGA Championship at plus 1,600, but you can get him for plus 3,500 this week, Emerson, in the Byron Nelson.
Yep.
There's deals to be had, friends. So bring up those PGA Championship odds when you're looking at the top players and go down the list. Hideki's another one that sticks out. But yeah, I would not shy away from these top players. I think multiple of them you'll see compete for sure this week.
I mean, hell, you got Koepka, Matsuyama, Neiman, and Seamus Power all at plus 3,500 this week. You're telling me out of those four, if you gave people an option, they weren't going to take Brooks? Like you'd be insane to think that. Like,
are you bashing the good country of Ireland here with Seamus Power?
No,
Max
I'm
Power?
not.
No, you're right. I mean, look, he should not be the same price as Hideki or Brooks. It's
seven of the world's top 15 are suiting up this week. So from guys near the top of the betting board here, like, is there anyone that you are fading? There's that trio of Texans, Scheffler, Zalatoris, and like Jordan Spieth. And I believe Scheffler said this is his favorite course to play.
I mean, I'm not fading Scotty Scheffler at any point. I'm not going to bet him this week. I think I would rather take a shot on him next week at the PGA Championship. But like, should we be surprised at this point if Scotty Scheffler just comes in and shoots like 62 in the first round again and cruises to a win?
Yeah.
Not really. I will say this, like, there's no way in hell I'm betting Will Zalatoris a plus 1,400. I do not know who made the odds this week or why Will Zalatoris is plus 1,400. But to have him at that price with Dustin Johnson, Jordan Spieth, Xander Schauffele, the list goes on, quite frankly. It's just an unbettable number. So I'll shout out to Will Zalatoris, a really solid player. He'll win eventually. And if he does win this week, that's fine. I'll live with it because the number is just too short there. So I think you'd actually need Zalatoris to be closer to plus 3,000 to even consider him in this field. It's just the strength of field thing, right? So, guys like Schauffele, Spieth, these are players who are just too good to kind of bet Zalatoris when his number is smaller than them. So he definitely sticks out. You could go down the list too, though. Like even a guy like Tommy Fleetwood, who I don't hate at plus 4,000, that number just really is probably giving him a little bit too much respect. You've got guys like Maverick McNealy, who's been really good. Even going down like a guy like, Mark Leishman, I just don't think Fleetwood at plus 4,000 necessarily deserving of that number either. So it's not just Zalatoris. This field is deep enough that we're getting a few players who have been kind of just their numbers just been cut down too much. So you really should be looking for value this week. It's a stronger field than we're used to. It's actually a stronger field than we've seen the last couple of weeks. So there's some good bargains, but there's also a couple guys, in my opinion at least, you should be avoiding.
All right, dude. Before we transition over to football, one more for you. KH Lee, we mentioned it, winner last year. You're talking about trying to find some value on the board. I mean, are you going deep down here? You're going to consider him at plus 10,000? If not, is there another long shot you like?
I mean, look, my career pinnacle happened at this event last year.
That's
Emerson.
right, baby.
And when I touted KH Lee, I think it was plus 17,000. Like, I mean, it just can't get any better than that. So do I have love for my guy KH Lee at plus 10,000 this week? Yes. I mean, of course, I'm not going to say anything bad about KH Lee. He's putting food in the table still, but he's not necessarily my favorite long shot play. I really don't hate giving Jason Day a chance this week. And there's two guys at plus 5,500. I already mentioned the other one. Maverick McNealy is a player who is going to win eventually. I really like the way he sets up for this course. He's big off the tee. His approach game has been better this year, but he can get really hot with the putter. And again, if we get a lower scoring event, which we're going to, I think Maverick McNealy can definitely excel there. And I'm going to give Jason Day one shot this week, just one shot to prove himself that this isn't a fluke. He gained a ton on approach last week. He was one of the top players tee to green. If Jason Day is back and I think the setup is better for him than just like a rainy, freezing cold, where we played last week, I think plus 5,500 is still good value. So those are two players I'd be looking at. McNealy is definitely my more favorite bet. Jason Day is just kind of we're going to ride the momentum and see. But those are two players at plus 5,500 who I would be definitely targeting this week in the betting odds.
Been burned too many times by Jason Day, so there's no way that dude's hanging on this weekend. No way.
I mean, it's very possible it's going to look like an idiotic call by me come
I
Sunday.
can't wait.
That's why I said, like make sure you pair him with a player like Maverick Mcnealy, who's, maybe a little bit safer.
All right. We got one more break to go, one more block to go. The Jeff Ulrich special here, the Sweat, a Jeff Ulrich special will continue next. Pierce is going to join the party, and we're going to discuss some NFL betting, some bets. Yeah, as the schedule's starting to be leaked out. All right, so the whole NFL schedule is going to be released on Thursday night. We're going to have an entire special NFL schedule release show, a version, an edition of the Sweat on Friday. So make sure you mark your calendars for that. It's going to be can't miss internet television. But there are some games that are leaking. DraftKings contributors Pierce Dietrich and Jeff Ulrich are here to share their best NFL bets. We're going to break down more of the games, guys, as they are released. But let's look at a few other sections here of the DK Sportsbook, like some rookie player totals. So which one catches your eye, Pierce?
First of all, when do we break down Detroit's game by game so I can make sure that they're above a 500 team this year, huh?
Yeah. Get
Can't wait
excited
that
for it,
episode.
man. It's happening. And don't forget, we have it on tape. You called the Jaguars winning the Super Bowl this year. And that is why you and I have become best friends.
Yeah, we'll get to the Jaguars later on in this segment. Chris Olave is going to be my guy for wide receiver. His prop this year is over 4.5 touchdowns, over 719 receiving yards. Those numbers are kind of low. I mean, obviously he's not Jamar Chase, but that's half of what Chase put up last season. So can Olave in that offense put up those kind of numbers? I think he definitely can. Even if Michael Thomas is playing, if Michael Thomas isn't playing, I still think he can get those numbers. And you look at in terms of receiving yards, over 50 receivers last year went over that total. Over 60 receiving touchdowns or receivers went over that receiving touchdown prop. So can he be in the top 50 and top 60 in pass catchers? I think so. I'll take Olave's props for this year.
Okay, Jeff, which one do you like here? Looking at rookie player totals.
Yeah, I actually almost went with Olave over as well, especially in the touchdowns. Actually, if you look, Jameis Winston was one of the best quarterbacks in the red zone last year, but the red zone stats does get me to my pick. Jahan Dotson under 4.5 touchdowns. Unfortunately, he doesn't have Jameis Winston. He's got Carson Wentz attached to him, who took a league high 9 sacks in the red zone, had like a 56% completion percentage in the red zone as well. And then you also just add in the fact, like, you look at where Dotson fits into this offense. Like, he's not going to be the ace with Terry McLaurin there. You've got Logan Thomas to work to in the in the red zone as well. Like, there's just too many options here for the Commanders necessarily to be taking the over on Dotson's touchdown total. So I really like the under on that one. You also got Gibson, who, they used a lot, and his carries were going up as the year went on. So Dotson under 4.5 touchdowns total. I like the player. Maybe even look to take the over on his yardage and go under in the touchdowns, but I do not trust touchdown totals with Carson Wentz attached. So we're going to go under Jahan Dotson. I'll throw out one more over. Sky Moore over 680.5 receiving yards. I'll take that. Not afraid of Mecole Hardman or MVS in front of the depth chart of him either.
All right, dude. I know it's early, but what's the value at looking at teams' odds to make the playoffs right now? Do you see any, Jeff?
Yeah, I think there's a couple. I mean, Eagles minus 115 to make the playoffs. They're playing the AFC South this year. Oh, by the way, they also have games against the Commanders and Giants, going to be probably favorites there. Jalen Hurts is just a player, too, who very good at bouncing back from poor performances. Obviously, the A.J. Brown news. I'll take the Eagles to sneak in there. I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think they even challenge for the division. I think there's also good value on the Saints plus 150 to make the playoffs, too. They do play the AFC North this year, but again, like, you've got 4 games against Atlanta and Carolina here. The Saints had a pretty good draft. I like the fact they did not waste a pick on a weak quarterback class. They brought in Olave. I think the Saints at plus 150, probably even better value. And then not to make the playoffs, Arizona Cardinals, they play the AFC West. Let's fade the Cardinals.
Okay, talk to me here, Pierce. Is this when you were going to mention the Jaguars plus 450? Yes, to make the playoffs.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Jags plus 450. I said it all last season. I still believe that the AFC South may be the worst division in the league. So anyone can win here. And I mean, look, the Titans going into the postseason or in the offseason, they had the 8th best odds to win the Super Bowl. The Titans are now 14th in terms of odds to win the postseason or win the Super Bowl. So they've fallen backwards a little bit. They really didn't help their team. Sure, they added a little bit to the secondary, but their line is still an issue. Their quarterback play is still an issue. It's Derrick Henry or bust there. And Indianapolis, yeah, they added Matt Ryan, but they still have line issues. They've added a couple key players here and there, but they really needed to address that line. Last year, Carson Wentz faced a 25% pressure rate. He was hit the second most times. The only guy that was hit more than Carson Wentz last year was Matt Ryan. And oh, by the way, the Jaguars are built to put pressure on the quarterback. And we saw that last year when the Jags pulled the upside set. They sacked Wentz 6 times. So if a team can win in this division and win games in this division, then it's going to be the Jaguars at plus 450. I like their odds.
Did the Colts have a O-line problem or a Carson Wentz problem? I think we're going to find out that it was a Carson Wentz problem, Pierce. But yeah, go with the Jags. That's fine.
No. We certainly will. But every point that Pierce made was absolutely perfect. Well done there, Pierce. The schedule does play. The schedule does play a factor on a team's win totals, though, Jeff. Is there one right now you like, regardless of how their schedule shakes out?
Yeah, there's 2. One is the Eagles at over 8.5. I mentioned just the scheduling, and for the Eagles, they play the AFC East. So, they play the AFC South, which again, that gives them a couple games against the Texans and the Jaguars. And I know Pierce has the Jaguars penciled in as the Super Bowl champions this year, but this is still a team who's plus 450 to make the playoffs. They're not going to be that good. Sorry, guys. So the Eagles have a very nice schedule set up. And again, I mentioned Jalen Hurts. I trust Jalen Hurts to get me to 9 wins. That's just the long and the short of it. He's going to have some bad games in there probably where he turns the ball over a little bit, but he will bounce back and grind out wins. He's done it so far for a year and a half for us. So I think Eagles at 8.5, you take the over, and I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm going to take the over 6.5 wins on the Detroit Lions as well. I like the Lions draft. They addressed the one thing they needed to do on offense, get some spark there. Then they went defense with the rest of their picks. I think Minnesota is a very beatable team. The Bears do not have a deep enough roster yet to really compete. I think the Lions can definitely get the over 6.5 wins for us at plus 100. I like that value.
Music to your ears there, Pierce.
And let me build off of what Jeff was saying. He likes the Eagles because they're playing the AFC South. I like the Jags going over 6 because they play the AFC South, yes, but they also play the NFC East. And the NFC East, other than Dallas at the end of the season, that was a pretty terrible division. I don't know if they've gotten that much better. But either way, if I had to pick what division to play and on the Jags, then the NFC East would definitely be at the top of my list. They also get a game with Detroit, so that's another possible win. We never know with Detroit. They're practically a 500 team. They might cover, they might lose, who knows? But give me the Jags. If I got to go to the playoffs, then they're going to go over 6. And then I also like the Jets going under their total. I don't see, they added a cornerback, but I don't know how much is that going to really improve this team. The offensive line was an absolute issue. If they don't get better play there, and I don't expect them to, then how are they going to win games? And you look at the wins that they got last year. They were over teams like the Titans and the Bengals. But you look back, you still can't even believe that those wins happened. But you can believe every single one of their losses happened. They're playing games against the AFC East. They'll play games against the AFC North. I don't like the Jets. Give me their under.
All right, guys, less than 90 seconds to go on show. How about a team whose team total could hinge on bad traveling, like a bad travel schedule or short rest between weeks, Jeff?
Panthers under 6 wins. They play the AFC West this year. Good luck with that, Panthers fans. You got Carolina way over here on the East somewhere, and then they got to go to all these powerhouse teams on the West. That's the opposite of good. Panthers under 6 wins. Yeah, Sam Darnold's still the quarterback last time I checked.
Yep, it's true. Pierce.
If I was going to lean towards any team going under their total, I would look at the AFC teams first of all because they're going to play fewer home games, and then I would pay more attention to the AFC teams at home that typically have a home field advantage, like New England or Pittsburgh. Those teams are going to be hurt more, other than like a team like the Jags, who really have no home field advantage at all, so they're not hurt by playing one fewer home game. So AFC home team advantage teams.
Yo, there are 5 NFL teams this season that are going to travel more miles than it takes to go around the world. The Seahawks will be traveling the most, nearly 30,000 miles on their 8 road trips: New Orleans, Jacksonville, Denver, and Miami.
Aren't the Seahawks Pierce's NFC Championship pick?
Is that true, Pierce?
Well, they got to sign Baker Mayfield first.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. By the way, this is crazy. The Steelers will travel the fewest miles of any teams. They're not even scheduled to leave the Eastern time zone. That is cake. Just like 6,000 miles is all they will travel this season. Anywho, all right. That's a show. Jeff, you're on the slate tonight with Glash at 5. Is that true?
True story.
All right. Awesome. Can't wait to tune into that. Pierce, good seeing you as always, dude. This show is back tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock Eastern time. We'll be back in studio having a good time. Love you. Mean it. Peace.